Yeah, hello everyone, and welcome to another day. So, yeah, let's just talk about the Word of God anyway, which is what we do. And before we get into that, I'd just like to say a few things. First things first, I've realized and I've noticed that you find a lot of preachers who, yeah, they just go around. They like to castigate themselves. You understand? I don't know if they think that they are in a competition. You know, or maybe they just want to be competitive against themselves and all of that. And then they castigate themselves and cast aspersions on each other. Um, you can imagine a preacher saying, I'm talking about preachers now, mostly those from Africa now. Imagine a preacher saying that another preacher is not saved. I mean, how do you know that preacher is not saved? Jesus said, whoever does not gather with me, yeah, is against me, right? Scatters. If another man of God is if he's preaching the gospel, even if it's a gospel with a quality of wood, you understand? Like I'm using that now from what Paul wrote in First Corinthians, okay, chapter 3, about us being judged. You understand the quality of our work being judged. And what is the quality of our work anyway? It is how true the gospel you taught, how true it is to the reality. That is just basically what Paul is talking about there in first. Let me just open it. I wasn't going to go there. I don't even know why I'm going there, but let's just do it. Um, okay, I'll read it from First Corinthians. Okay, chapter 3. I'm reading from verse 10. Paul says, "By the grace God has given me, I laid a foundation as an expert builder." Okay, it says, and someone else is building on it. In this chapter, he's actually making a reference to Apollos. Okay, it says, and someone else is building on it. It says, but each one should be careful how he builds. That's one thing I like about Paul anyway. He abrogates to himself so much authority. It doesn't matter. That's his business. Anyway, he says, but each one should be careful how he builds. He says, for no one can lay any foundation other than the one already laid, which is Jesus Christ. Of course, Jesus died for everyone, right? So no other foundation can be laid. Jesus Christ. He says, if any man builds on this foundation using gold, silver, costly stones, wood, hay, or straw, his work will be shown for what it is, because the day will bring it to light. It will be revealed with fire, and the fire will test the quality of each man's work. If what he has built survives, he will receive his reward. If it is burned up, he will suffer loss. He himself will be saved, but only as one escaping through the flames. What's Paul trying to say? Anyone can pick up the books, okay, and preach the gospel, quote unquote, okay? I use quote unquote. Why? Because 90% of what is being taught out there is complete rubbish. That's the truth. And when I say complete rubbish or what is being taught out there, I'm speaking about from the Catholic Church, okay, through the Protestant churches, it's mostly nonsense. Now, what I'm trying to say, I'm not saying that I have a better understanding than anybody. No, I do not. I know the nation which I was called in. Okay, like Paul wrote, we are many members but one body, right? Each one of us, we've been gifted in a particular way for a particular purpose. Okay, for the edifying of the church, just like he wrote, right? So what I'm trying to say is this: when you have a gospel, if the quality of your work is wood, if it's tested with fire, it's gonna get burnt off, of course, right? But then the one thing that we all have in common is that we preach Christ and Him crucified, right? I don't preach Christ crucified anyway. I preach Christ, the high priest in heaven, after the order of Melchizedek, after the order of the God Melchizedek. That's what we preach here. Now, my point is this: why am I saying all this? It's just so that we can understand something. You who's called, who you say you're a minister, okay, and you've got a church and you've got members under you, you should not stand on your pulpit and then you start to cast aspersions on someone else who's doing the work. His motive for doing that work, I'm not talking about the person casting aspersions now, the other person he's talking about. That person's motive may have been monetary, okay? It may have been, um, okay, I need to make a living. What am I going to do? oh, this is business. Because church, as far as I'm concerned, has become a franchise anyway. That's what it is. When people set up churches now, and then they set up branches everywhere, it's all a franchise, and they're all just making money from it. You see a pastor come out and say that, oh, he just bought his third private jet and all of that. Personally, it's not my business. I do not care. But what I'm trying to say is that, regardless, hmm, as long as it's Jesus that is being preached, I just thought of something. I remembered something. I mean, you listen to these preachers, these so-called quote unquote, they give themselves titles now. They say they are generals or God's generals and all of that. And that's based on that book. Okay. I had that book a long time ago by Robert something. Doesn't matter, I can't remember. Okay, what I'm trying to say is this, see, these preachers come out, okay, and it feels like they are being competitive with one another, okay? They are competing against themselves and they are comparing themselves based on how quote unquote well they are doing in ministry. I mean, you say you're doing well in ministry, and what money are you making? You're getting offerings from the people. If one is doing that, you who says you're also a preacher, you don't have a right to come out and start talking about them. You are not their judge. Let them do what they want to do. That's the truth. It's nobody's business. You know why I'm saying that? Because the day will bring everything to light. When judgment comes, okay, we will all stand. We will not even be judged anyway. Why? Because we've been born of the mother. So we are the children. That's why we judge ourselves now in this world. So we will not be judged. Okay, but my point is this: let every man do whatever they want to do. Don't come out and start casting aspersions on someone and all of that. That's the truth. It's not worth it. Why am I saying that? Because you are not the one they are talking about. It's Jesus that they are preaching. That's my point. Okay? So I just thought I'd mention that because I look at it and it is sad. Why am I saying it's sad? Because these are the people, quote unquote, who are representing Christ to the nations. And then the people look at them and that's what they see. All the people, all there are those who all they do is come out and condemn, condemn people, and they say they are sinners. They are sinners. What makes them sinners? An idiot now will come out and say, and when I say an idiot, I'm talking about a preacher, will come out and say, oh, it is their lifestyle. What is their lifestyle? The church is blind. That's the honest truth. The church is just blind, and it is very sad. It's really sad. Really, really, really sad. Because it's like we are blind. We don't know what we are doing. The gospel is not. Anyway, let's leave that because I'm going on a tangent I didn't even plan to go on. Um, I'm going to read from the book of Hebrews. Okay, that's my favorite book in the Bible. Why? Because well, that's where I got the understanding of the truth from. I'll just be reading from Hebrews chapter 6. Okay, no, I'll back up a bit. Let me read from chapter 5. It's beautiful. I'll read from chapter 5, verse 11. Speaking of, okay, I'll go further up. Let me start from verse 8. It says, although he was a son, Jesus was a son, it says he learned obedience from what he suffered. And once made perfect, he became the source, the author of eternal salvation for all who obey him. And he was designated by God to be high priest in the order of Melchizedek. Now, I'll stop there first. Now, what I want to say is this. Like I do say, no one has a monopoly. It's like Paul says, it's like we are looking for now we see darkly through a glass. I like to read it in my mind as we see darkly through a crystal ball. You understand? Why? Because we do not see clearly. Why? Because that realm is veiled from us. Why? Because we are stuck in this body. Okay? Stuck in this body, stuck in this vision. And what vision is that? The peripheral that we see of this physical world. We are stuck with it. Okay? So that's why he says now we see darkly through a glass. We see darkly through you can't even see through a glass anyway. I'm not talking about see through glasses now, mirrors. When you look in a glass or a mirror, what do you see? You see yourself, right? Okay. So he says now we see darkly through a glass. He says, but then, we'll see clearly and we shall know them just as we are fully known. What I'm trying to say is this, see, no one has a monopoly of the gospel. That's truth. And when I say no one has a monopoly, no one has a total understanding of it. No. But what I do know and what I've observed over time is that every single preacher has been given a word from God, okay? A word of wisdom, a word of knowledge, a word of whatever, okay? To put out into the world. Together, when you put it all together, the picture starts to become clearer to you. That's just what I want to say on that, okay? When you put it all together, it becomes clearer to you. Like myself, I don't preach a message of and tell you, oh, God is going to bless you. Put down your money here and or all the nonsense that's out there. We don't do that, and then we don't even carry the books and read like the Catholic Church does. They just read one verse or two verses and then put the book down and all of that and start talking all the nonsense they want to say. No, that's not the gospel. The good news is this: that Jesus rose from the dead. Okay, he ascended to heaven and he's become a high priest in heaven after the order of the God Melchizedek. That is the present good news now. Okay, we're not talking about Jesus came or whether he died. I have a friend who's in Germany. He called me yesterday, and we spoke for quite a while, about 30 minutes. And he's a Muslim, okay, and we've known for close to 20 years. And he called me yesterday from Germany and he spoke to me and he said, he doesn't watch my videos. He doesn't even know I make these videos anyway. But he called me and he says, man, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, I'm available. Yeah. What's the matter? And then he says that he's starting to question his faith in Islam. And I'm like, okay, what's your cause? And he starts to ask me questions now from the Bible. Okay. Of course, I told him. And he says, okay, now, first of all, he's talking. And then he says, if you look at Genesis and all of that, he's tried to read it. And he says, but if you look at what God did, okay, that's talking about Yahweh now as God, because that's what they know. And that's what even the church today knows. The church is blind to the truth. So he's talking about that. And then I told him, I said, do you want to hear the truth? He says, yeah, why not? That's the reason why he called. And I said, see, I'll tell you the truth. You see that guy that's revealed in Genesis chapter 2 that claims to be God? I said, that guy is the devil. That's the truth. I said, but the sad fact is that the church itself is blind to the truth. Why? Because he rebranded himself, okay? After trying to persecute the church, and he saw that he couldn't completely wipe it out because he'd wiped away the apostles already, the first generation, let me put it that way. The word had already been passed down, okay? Apart from these things that I've written, I mean, oh, it's beautiful. The gospel of Jesus Christ is beautiful. Anyway, back to what I was saying. So he talked and I told him, I said, see, that guy is the devil. He says, then if that guy is the devil, then who is Allah? I said, Allah is the same guy now. He just rebranded himself. Allah is the devil. That's the truth. He's a Muslim. But I had to tell him. And I said, Allah is the devil. That's the honest truth. He said, but is that not the person that Jesus still came to talk about? I said, no. Jesus came to talk about the Most High God. I said, and common sense, if you think about it, common sense should tell you if someone is the Most High, that means there are others like him that he's higher than. That's just what it means. He says, oh, that means that God is not just one person. I said, no. God is a race, just like man is a race. When they said, let us make man, it was a race they were talking about. But they are gods. Now, let us make man. And that is the father and the mother talking. Let us make man. But this time now, we're going to make them in our image. Okay? And he was talking and he was bringing in science. Okay, he was talking about scientific. I'm trying to remember exactly one thing which he spoke. And I said, you're even smarter than most people out there. If I do recall, I'll mention it anyway. So he was talking and he mentioned science. And I told him, I said, yes, science is correct. When science talks